Hello and welcome to another episode of Her Helping Habit on Air. We are a Canadian fertility agency specializing in known egg donation, embryo donation, and surrogacy, helping intended parents, surrogates, and donors navigate their journeys through education, support, and advocacy. Through open conversations and shared experiences, we aim to empower everyone involved in the family building process. Her Helping Habit on Air does not provide medical advice. These are simply lived experiences shared to help make the often uncharted world of infertility feel a little less scary.
I'm joined here today by Katie, the founder and creator of Her Helping Habit. So without further ado, I think we should just dive straight in. So here we go.
Are most of your intended parents in Canada?
Our intended parents are really quite a 50-50 split between Canadian intended parents and international. They can come from all over the world. We do have a good chunk of people who are living in Canada, but like I said, they could be coming from anywhere because Canada doesn't discriminate. There's a lot of countries in Europe and throughout the world that don't allow same-sex parents, single parents, pursue adoption or egg donation or surrogacy, and it's illegal. So Canada, we are quite open.
So what will the intended parents see and learn about me from my profile?
So intended parents are going to see all the photos that you send us, a video if you were to create one, and essentially anything that you put in your egg donor profile. So your egg donor application you've sent us, that's private, and that's stuff that we would review with you on your intake call, but your profile is the next paperwork that we send you following that call, and everything in there is what is shown to the intended parents.
What is your general demographic for the intended parents?
Intended parents essentially could be anyone from 18 to 52, but I've never had anybody apply that young. I would say on average intended parents are from 25 to 50. And I'm saying 50 because that tends to be when clinics cut off. There's some clinics that will let you transfer up to maybe 51. So that's where maybe upon pregnancy occurring, they'd be 52. But yeah, I think most parents tend to be in their 40s or 50s.
Will I be enrolled in an egg donor registry?
I wish I could say yes. If you're a Her Helping Habit donor, you're going to be in our internal egg donor registry. But unfortunately, there is no such thing as a international egg donor registry or even just a registry in Canada. We really need one for long-term tracking of egg donor health, but then also for tracking of all these offspring that are conceived through egg and sperm donations. There is a donor sibling registry based out of the United States. Do you know there's something like that exists? I think it is a lot more beneficial for people in the US who are going through banks and have a bank number and are working with frozen gametes, but you would be kept into our internal registry, and that will be shared with the government if and when one ever becomes available.
If I do not live local to the intended parents' clinic, how often will I need to travel and for which appointments?
So if you don't live close to the intended parents' clinic, you're going to have to travel probably once for a screening trip and then once for a retrieval trip. So 2 trips. The screening trip is anywhere from a day to 3 days. And that's really a quick fly in and out. You're going to be checking blood work, ultrasound, meeting with the doctor in person, and genetic testing. So that's all kind of done in one go. It usually happens between day 3 or 5 of your period. And then once all that's in, fast forward, your second trip is after you start medication. So depending on the clinic, do not quote me. There's a lot of clinics lately we're seeing they want you to travel for that full 2-week period that you're on medication. So that means you need to go be there day 3 of your period again, have an ultrasound, you'll be given the go ahead to start meds, and then you're there until after your retrieval. I really don't like people flying the next day. If you must for work, I'm not going to keep you there, but I recommend a day or 2 recovery, and then we get you on a flight home. So your second trip could be up to 3 weeks. Other clinics, you might get to do some local monitoring. So if there's a clinic close to you at home, they can do some testing that is sent to the clinic that your intended parents are at. And then you travel anywhere from day 7 to day 9 on medication. And then you're there for probably 3 to 5 days to have the retrieval and recovery.
When and how will I receive my compensation?
I know that a lot of people ask that, and there's not a lot of awareness out there, but it's totally illegal to be compensated. In Canada, we have a reimbursement model. So what that means is your receipted expenses are reimbursed after the fact. So receipted expenses for egg donors can be anywhere from $5,000 and up for your personal expenses. And so that covers things like your time off work, companion's time off work because you need someone to accompany you on this retrieval procedure, check you out, and then you're not bored for the 2 weeks you're away. So both of you guys get that time covered from work. Childcare, dog care, if you have either of those, there's a list if you go to the Government of Canada's website of reimbursable expenses, and that varies as well if you're a surrogate. But yeah, there is no compensation in Canada.
Do I have a choice of whether I want to be contacted by IPs or future offspring?
Yes and no. You establish the kind of relationship that you're looking for at the very beginning. And that's something we really take into consideration when we're intaking you. So we encourage you to think about that if you haven't already before you talk to us, so that we can really get a sense of like what you're looking for in terms of a relationship, and find you a couple or recommend somebody who's looking for something similar. So if you don't want to stay in touch, that's okay, but why? And I would kind of wonder, where is that fear coming from? Because we do know that it's best practice to stay in touch to some degree and have an openness for the children who result from these donations. So yeah, I would want to kind of see what your thoughts are on that down the line for the children reaching out, because it's unfortunate if one day they want to know something medically or about you, that affects them down the line, and you aren't open to sharing that. Because, I think we kind of got to put ourselves in these kids' shoes. If I was conceived through egg or sperm donor, I think it's natural to have questions, and I would simply want to know, do I have history of cancer in my family? Am I French? Am I Italian? And I know some of that is put in an egg donor profile, but there is a huge gap between the period of time somebody donates and some of these kids are 20 or even when they're in kindergarten or grade 2 when they're divulging into their family trees and their ancestry. And that really helps form somebody's identity. So we really come from a place of an open door policy at Her Helping Habit. And it's not that you need to be best friends, but you definitely would need to stay in touch to some degree to share information, at minimum by email. If you want to talk, video chat, meet in person, by all means, but you're going to have to agree to some kind of exchange in the future if it's requested of you, if that makes sense. I don't think it's really fair for us to say, you can't do that, or, that you have to meet them, but I think that information needs to be shared. So we can share that for you at Her Helping Habit if we're still in existence, but we like you guys to have that connection, to have some kind of control, because I don't know if we're going to be in existence for sure in 20, 30, 40 years, maybe, when these questions are asked.
What usually causes a cycle to be canceled?
So I haven't seen too many cycles be canceled, but things that could cause that is if a donor's failed her drug test, we're not going to be starting her on meds. And on day 3, just before they prescribe meds, you do ultrasound, blood work, probably a drug test in there. And they're checking the ultrasound, if there's a cyst or any maybe fluid within the area that's unexpected, like anything from that ultrasound or blood work that comes up that's unusual could cause a cycle to cancel. I guess mid-cycle, if you're into monitoring, a cycle could be canceled if there are too little or too many eggs developing. A cycle is not going to be feasible if there's only 4 or 5 eggs growing and you're an egg donor. That's more likely to be seen with somebody who's going through IVF themselves, that's an infertile patient. Yeah, essentially a doctor would recommend a cycle to be canceled if he doesn't think it's going to be viable.
If you'd like to connect with us or have questions about known egg donation, embryo donation, surrogacy, becoming a parent, or exploring whether becoming a surrogate or donor is right for you, you can find us online at Her Helping Habit or email us at info@herhelpinghabit.com. We're passionate about educating and supporting all parties throughout the journey, and you can also book a free consultation with one of our coordinators directly through our website. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon on the next episode of Her Helping Habit on Air. Thank you.